talk about clams. First of all, I want to say I'm not a clam expert by any means, but I do find a lot of different clam shells on the beach. And what always amazes me, is the diversity of nature. You know, how many different types of the same type of creature that you find. So, you know, clams, they're shellfish. They're known as bivalves, meaning that they have that hinge and the two sides of it open. So I'm going to show you some different shells. Actually, I think only one of them you can see has that hinge. And I'm going to show you these in no particular order, except that I'm going to show you the more fragile ones first because I had to carry them in my hand. And the rest of them are going to come out of my pocket in the order in which they come out. So here's the most fragile one. And let's see if I can get this in front of here. You can see the hinge is kind of loose. But anyway, this is an angel shell clam of some sort. And you see how pretty that is and how delicate that is. And this is really a small one. Usually I find them bigger, but I was kind of excited to find that little one. So pretty, right? And this is, you know, they grow to be bigger. They grow to be bigger than this, but that's what size when they get bigger. Cute. And you might think this is the world's smallest clamshell. Look at that baby. It's so cute. That's not actually the smallest one I've seen, but you know, they've got to start somewhere, so that's a little one. Another clam, this is kind of the most common clam I think we find on the beach, and you'll see it just looks like this. And if you've ever had steamed clams in New England, this is probably the kind of clamshell that you'll see. And there's a place near here called Ipswich, and Ipswich is pretty famous for its clams, and they're usually like this. And what you'll notice about this one that's interesting is it has a hole up at the end here. And maybe if you've been to the beach before, you've seen clams with holes in them like that, and you wonder, where did those come from? Is that just so I can make a necklace out of it? I don't know. But anyway, that hole is actually probably made by a moon snail. And I have another video in which I talk about moon snails. I don't happen to find one today, so I can't show you what it looks like. But they look like pretty little snails. But what they do is they attach themselves to something like a clam like this. And with that big monopod that they have, they kind of engulf it. And from inside there, they have a probe called a radula that goes into the surface of the clam, and it kind of drills into it with some acid. And then once it gets inside, it devours it, like we would if we were having steamed clams. So anyway, that's what that is. And that's interesting. This is a good sized clam. Whichever moon snail ate this clam had a pretty good meal. But also I have one of these tiny little clam shells, and it just has a tiny little hole in it too. So somebody had a small meal. Maybe it was a small moon snail. I don't know. All right, here's another kind of clam shell. I really like this. It's so pretty. It's textured. Isn't that like, I don't know if you can see that very well. I'm going to move it around a few different places, but it's bumpy. And even on the inside, you can see it has a smooth part and it has a bumpy part. And I don't know what kind of clam that is, but I do see it out here occasionally. Not the most common, but I do see it. Here's another kind of clam that I like. This is a very delicate kind of shell. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of almost flimsy. And that's a different kind of, I like. It's nice and white and striated. It's pretty. We find these out here, not as much as the clams that we steam, but this is also probably a clam that people eat a lot. And I think when I was growing up, my father liked to eat clams and oysters and so on, raw. And I think we called this hard-shelled clam, cherry stone clam. Some of them, I can't say that specifically what this is, but that's what it reminds me of. Oh, I have a mussel shell. So this isn't technically a clam, I don't think, but we find a lot of these mussels. They are also bivalves. We also, maybe you've had steamed mussels with a little bit of butter and garlic, delicious. And what's interesting about mussel shells is they also have a very shiny inside. It almost looks like mother of pearl. I hope you can see that. And this one's interesting because look at that. It has a little notch in the edge of it. I think it almost looks like a long-shaped heart, but I'm always seeing hearts in nature. And so that's a mussel shell. And this is another mussel shell. Pretty. And this one is one that's obviously been around for a while. You can see that the outside of it has a lot more worn off. It has something on it, something white like that's growing on it. And often mussel shells will have barnacles attached to them. I didn't have. Here is a razor clam. And razor clams, I think, have become quite popular in cooking, and you can get razor clams to eat in a restaurant. Doesn't seem like there'd be a whole lot in there. I've never had one, but maybe I will someday. Yeah, that's a razor clam. The last one that I'm going to show you, I think this is really pretty. You can see the layers of kind of color on the outside of the shell. So it's not our usual kind of clam, a different kind of clam. And again, this one has a notched edge. I thought it was broken when I first found it, but it seems like it's just a notch on there. And, you know, probably it was leaning up against something while it was growing. I don't know. So that's what I have for you about clams. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to learn more about things I find on the beach, I have a playlist called Things I Find on the Beach. And please subscribe to Salisbury Sunrises if you'd like to see more of those videos, and sunrises and sunsets and just general all kinds of beach stuff. Sometimes I get some video of surfers, different things like that. Love to have you join, subscribe, and click on the notification bell so you don't miss any of them. And I hope you have a wonderful day.